Hello. So first things first, the volume may not be ideal, so you may have to have headphones for this video. I do apologize for that, but it's beyond my control right now. This is a video I've wanted to make for some time, and now it seems like as good a time as any to raise the subject. I've just come off a Facebook group called We Are Humanity. You may be familiar with the group. It's got over 2 million members. It's a big group. Um, Anyway, ostensibly that group was about trying to promote positivity and promote positive memes and uplifting pieces. I've just decided to leave the group because in recent weeks they have become way too political and partisan for my liking, and I think that's misleading as to what they're actually all about. Anyway, the latest post was a very biased piece about some guy. I don't know who he is, but it said this man perfectly destroys the pro-life argument in terms of abortion. Now, I looked at the piece and it was automatically flawed because, and I'll tell you what my position is in a minute, but basically, he was making this analogy that if there was a child in a burning clinic or a cylinder containing embryos, which would you save? But that's automatically flawed because he's assuming that the embryos are outside the woman's body and that they're just embryos. The reality of the abortion debate is a lot more complex than that, and that is something that I have noticed. The problem is this is such a polarizing and emotive subject that people are expected to be hardline one way or another, and if you're not hardline one way or the other, then you're vilified as being on the other side. And I think that's very unfortunate. So I'm just going to say outright, my position fits more into the pro-choice side of things. Okay, so let me be absolutely clear about that. I fit in the pro-choice side of things, but, and this is a big but, I genuinely understand. And frustratingly, my battery is going to go, so I don't want to go in the middle of the video, so I'm just going to go into the next room. I genuinely understand both sides. And the problem is, if you, well, people think that's a neutral position. It's not. I am more pro choice. But I think it's possible to have a view on a subject whilst trying to understand the other side. And that's what I'm doing. So there's a lot of simple narratives that are put into this that really are not fair. So from the pro choice side, they present their opponents as woman hating religious extremists. It's a flawed argument. The other side present their opponents as baby killers without morality. Again, a flawed argument. So I want to break down how I see the arguments on both sides and why I fit more into the pro-choice side of things. But I've known people who are pro-life in their viewpoints, and not only are they not anti-woman, but in many cases they have been women. It's a big aspect that is often ignored. Some of the biggest critics of abortion are women. Okay, they might be religious women, but they're still women. Um, I've looked at the arguments, and their sincere view, what I see is not misogyny, not like, oh, let's control women's bodies. What I see is a sincere, deeply held belief that a fetus is life. Now, that's a position I don't necessarily agree with because I think the scientific consensus against that, but that is a sincerely held belief that they have. So to dismiss all pro-life people or anti-abortion people as hating women is a simplistic argument. It also ignores the fact that half of all fetuses are female. So if you're presenting it as hating women, well, they want to save female fetuses. They would also point out, look at the situation of forced abortions in a country like China. If it's about women's choices, what about their choices? So surely that should also be taken into consideration. Um, So I just don't accept that everyone who is against abortion hates women. I think there are some religious nuts out there who do have some pretty old-fashioned views on this, And I definitely can understand the disgust at people who, for example, harass women going into clinics. There has been examples of this. Not long ago in Canada, there was protests to this effect. I could definitely understand trying to prevent that sort of thing. There's no excuse for harassment, whatever your views are. Um, and you get terrorists who want to firebomb abortion clinics and so on. That's they are what they are. They're domestic terrorists. But what I would point out is those sort of people are the really the minority of abortion critics. You cannot say that everyone who's against abortion is an extremist. Just because you don't agree with their views, you can't say they're all one and the same. They're all religious fanatics because they're not. From what I see, these are people who have sincerely held views that abortion is wrong. Now, where I think they're wrong is that they don't take into account situations like rape, like incest, where the woman really has no choice, and in situations where they would oppose abortion even in those circumstances, I think that's quite cold because they're not taking into account that a woman would then have to bring a child into the world who's a product of a horrendous experience. Um, I also would suggest that those who accuse women who go for abortion as being baby killers, well, the scientific side of this is something that I feel is too often overlooked by the moral questions. The scientific side of things is extremely important. And I would put a lot of weight on scientific consensus. Now, scientists, from what I gather, there isn't a universal view on this, but most scientists will contend that the organs in a fetus are still developing right up to the point of birth. But I won't deny that I'm of the view, I share the unease of those who are against late stage abortion. I'm against late stage abortion, i.e., when it's about to, when a woman's about to give birth, because at that point the organs in a fetus are largely developed as human. You can pick up the heartbeat in the scan. So I do not accept this very crude argument that some pro choice people make, oh, it's just a collection of mush. I've heard that. I think that is even if that's their honest view, it's such a crude and undiplomatic way to put it. And I don't believe that. I don't think that at that stage, i.e., just before birth, you can simply dismiss a fetus as just a collection of mush. You could argue maybe it's not a fully developed human being, but just a collection of mush. I also recall there was a point in the Reagan Mondial debate in the late 80s when Reagan brought up an interesting point that there'd been a guy that had been convicted of murdering his partner, and he was charged on 2 counts of murder because she was pregnant at the time. Now that then leads to a moral question. I've heard people who say that they are pro-choice. They've heard of pregnant women being murdered. In fact, there's a topical example of this where I come from in Northern Ireland. The Oma bomb. Among the victims was a pregnant woman. She had twins. So there was a debate at the time over whether there was 29 fatalities or 31 fatalities, and that's still a debate. Northern Ireland, incidentally, is the one part of Western Europe that doesn't allow abortions to this day, which is a highly controversial issue. Um, so I'm pro-choice because I don't think that I think firstly pro-life people need to understand just how difficult this decision is. No woman or very few women make this decision lightly, and it is a very difficult decision. I've had friends who have went through it, and it's not something that any woman takes lightly. So there needs to be compassion for what the woman is going through. But I do think that too often this debate overlooks the scientific opinion on it, and I put a lot of emphasis on what a doctor has to say, i.e., what those people who are actually reading the scans, who are looking at whether or not the developing organs in a fetus can be classed as fully developed human organs. Now, my understanding is they can, which is why one of the reasons why I believe that life begins at birth. And another reason I believe that is because if it didn't, then we would be talking about someone's birthday, beginning, when they're born, that would be their one when they're born, but we don't. We take that as zero, and then their age is added upwards. There's also some hypocrisies on the pro-life side. For example, there's certain pro-life people that claim to be against abortion, but then they passionately advocate for the death penalty. So there's an inherent contradiction in that. But that there is a lot of complexities to this issue, and I feel quite disheartened sometimes. I'm frustrated that both sides are so quick to demonize the other. Now, what I would point out, at the present time, in most Western jurisdictions, abortion is legal. Most Western jurisdictions, Northern Ireland's one of the exceptions. But as far as I know, most American states, the United Kingdom, most of Western Europe, Canada, abortion is legal. So the pro choice side arguably have the upper hand on this. So to dismiss all the pro life side as religious extremists, they are the side that's having to accept the outcome they don't want. They believe abortion is wrong, but abortion happens. It's legal. And I'm thinking to myself, if I was in their shoes, I would be deeply uneasy about that. But like I say, unfortunately, this is such an emotive subject that people think if you try to understand the other side, then they want to portray you in a certain way. So, for example, I am on the pro-choice side of things. I'm trying to understand why pro-life people think the way they do. Now, pro-choice zealots will accuse me of being a charlatan. They'll say, "Oh, you're not pro-choice. You don't respect women." Blah blah blah. Um, all I'm saying is that this is an emotive subject. Both sides should at least try to listen to each other a little bit more, even if they don't agree, because this is too important an issue for people to just throw mud. And I know it's difficult, like any emotive subject, um, but clearly you're not going to get anywhere just throwing insults at each other. And at the moment, like I say, it's the pro-choice side I would say has the upper hand because most legislation is in their favor, at least in Western countries. So when they dismiss the entire pro-life side as being woman-hating extremists, it's deeply unfair. And I would be interested in hearing women who are pro-life. What do you think of that? I'm sure as a woman you don't appreciate being accused of hating your own sex. But I would also appeal to pro life people never assume that this is an easy decision a woman has to make. Now, to be fair, a lot of pro life people, in my opinion, do try to reach out, they do try to be open minded, and they say things like, I know that's not an easy decision for a woman to make. I've heard pro life politicians saying things like a woman shouldn't be punished for this. I disagree with it, but I don't hate women. So let's stop trivializing this or at least dismissing the argument by trying to pigeonhole the other side with straw man arguments, which is really what it is. If I was a legislator, I would take the position of being pro-choice. I think I would oppose abortion at late stage, with the exception of rape and incest. Although with rape and incest, if that really is the case, then presumably the woman would want to get a termination as soon as possible. I can't imagine she would want to keep it in those circumstances. And if she does want to keep it, that should be respected. That's another side about the pro choice argument. If it really is about choice, then if a woman feels uneasy about termination, she should also be given the option to keep the baby when it is born. So I know a lot of people watching this won't have bothered to listen to the whole video and they'll just rush to judgment about what they think my view is. It's a pity. That's the nature of this argument. And, it's the nature of this that people rush to judgment about the other side. I hope I have tried to give a few things for people to think about. I'm pro choice, but I don't think it's as simple as woman haters versus baby killers. It's really, really not. Because both sides can make legitimate points. I do not accept that late stage fetus is just a collection of mush. And I do not accept that women who have to take that very difficult decision of termination are baby killers. I don't accept that a fetus is a baby. So let's just listen to each other on this issue. Even if you don't agree, even if you feel strongly, I'm not telling people they have to agree with the other side. I'm just saying that in most cases it comes from a sincere, passionately held point of moral concern. And I don't agree that just because someone supports abortion, they are okay with the process. I think most people would agree that we need to reduce the want of unwanted pregnancies, whether it be reducing rape, reducing incest, or reducing teen pregnancies. I think most people would agree with that. President Obama made this point. Of course, he was pro choice, but he made that point that we can all agree on reducing the number of unwanted pregnancies. Now, I've left that group, We Are Humanity. I more or less said the things I've said in this video. I have no doubt there will be people who are scapegoating me, thumbing me down, and pigeonholing me into something I'm not. And that's unfortunate. Anyway, those are a few things for people to think about. Thank you for watching. Let me know your thoughts. And I'll keep the comment section open, but please, please keep it respectful. I don't want to see mudslinging here, and anyone accusing me of anything that I'm not going to put up with abuse. Simple as that. Um, I won't be smeared on my channel. I will not be smeared on my channel, and I will allow debate, but please try and keep it respectful. Thanks for watching.